Hey guys, it's Carlos Colon with Georgia Perimeter Homes here, and today we're going to be talking about negotiating the deal, what to do, how you do it. So you're buying your first home or you're buying another home and you want to know what the negotiation process is supposed to look like. Well, lucky for you, hopefully you're working with a real estate agent that's guiding you through all of this. But there are several negotiations that happen during the contract process that you need to know about. All right. Number one is the offer right from the beginning. So when you're placing an offer on the home and maybe they don't accept it right away or they just tell you no. So number one is no doesn't mean go away. So depending on how you offer, there are different strategies depending on whether it's an investment home you're trying to purchase or a home for yourself. If demand is really high, then at that point, of course, that makes a big difference on how willing they're going to be to come down off the price or not. And so the important part is really knowing that if they say no or if they counter offer, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on what they say and what kind of messages you receive. I would suggest if you get no reply or you get a no, that let's resubmit an offer and see what they say and start some communicating back and forth. That'll help us understand where the seller's bottom line sits and what their point of view is on what they want for this sale. Okay? And so during that conversation, what we really want to determine is going to be what are the deal breakers for the sellers. And so if it's a certain price, sometimes they're set on, okay, well, I'm getting $220 for my house no matter what. Okay, well, maybe we can do $220 as long as I get this amount of money towards my closing. And so it's all a negotiation back and forth. We just need to understand where their head's at on what they're looking for. Okay? All right. Second thing. We need to know if we're in a multiple offer situation. This makes a big difference in how we approach the negotiation. And so if we're the only offer coming into it, we would probably want to know that ahead of time if your agent can find out. But if not, just because I know that for our listings, we don't really disclose that. And so you want to make sure that you know, okay, if we don't know, but we're on a time crunch, then maybe we want to submit a decent offer for this. So we definitely want to get the best deal, but we also want the best terms, and we can't always get both. And so you've got to make sure that your offer is exactly how you want it to be. And if you try to come in with a really low price and really hard terms for the seller, the answer is probably going to be no, depending on the situation. So like I said, every situation is different. And so some of the things that you want to really talk about, let's say that it's in this situation, you'll love the house, you absolutely want it, and there are 3 other offers on the table. Let's talk about what things you need to be very careful with when you're putting in your offer in order to be able to stand out. So the first thing is going to be your financing contingency. Okay? This is not the amount of time it takes a lender to close your file. That is not what that is. Your financing contingency is your protection against getting declined for the loan. That is not the same as going, well, the lender can't do it in that amount of time. The lender doesn't have to have a financing contingency. It can be 0 in order and still get it to the closing table. This is just you going, well, I might get declined, and if I do within this amount of days, I can get my earnest money back. Well, as a seller, if you make that time frame really, really short, that means, or put it at 0 altogether, that means that you have a good file. You don't need a financing contingency. And so it's going to make you stand out altogether. So that's number one. The second thing is going to be the appraisal contingency. In some situations, homes are priced a little lower than they should be in order to get a multiple offer situation. And so sometimes we might be priced at $130, and maybe the home is actually worth $140 or $150 or $160, and we go, listen, we're willing to pay $160 because that's market value for this property. And if the appraisal comes in at $158, we're willing to pay the difference. That makes a big difference versus the person that's going to want their appraisal protection and is going to ask for that reduction. And so you want to make sure that you put that into the special stipulation section. That way the seller understands what your offer really looks like. Okay? Next one's going to be seller contributions. So how much money am I asking from that seller to help me with closing costs? And so we really want that to be 0, if at all possible, if you can pay your own closing costs. But there are other times that we might want to negotiate it at zero seller contributions, and during due diligence period go, listen, here are the repairs that need to be done on this house, but tell you what, give me $3,500 in seller contributions and I'll take care of it and I'll take the house as is. That might be a much better way to go. And so it all depends on how that negotiation is going to be handled. Just plan it out on the front side to make sure that it works out the way you want it to. All right, another one's going to be the timeline. Some sellers want a quick close. So being able to close within 14 or 21 days might be a good situation. But other sellers might need time finding the home that they really want. And so that might not mean anything to them. And if they need time figuring out where they're going to go next, maybe a 45-day close or a 60-day close makes sense to them because they'll have time to prep that other side, know where they're moving their belongings, and be able to line that up. So this is why I say ask questions on the front side, understand their situation so that you can make your offer appeal to them specifically. Okay? Last two parts about that's really going to be your special stipulation section, which is where we ask for a lot of small little things like termite clearance letter, septic pumpings, home warranties. If you want your offer to stand out, put none on that section and leave it clean. Okay? And the last thing is going to be the contingency to sell. If you have to sell your property in order to buy the next one and demand is really, really high on the market right now, that means that a lot of buyers are fighting for the same homes. You're going to be in a really bad position if you have to sell your home in order to buy the next one. Unless you are already under contract and about to close. Okay? And that's a very different situation there, but still, that protection to sell or to buy the next one by having to sell the other one, that's a hard ask from a seller in a very high demand market. And so in a perfect world, you would really want to talk to your loan officer and ask them, can I afford to go ahead and just buy this home and then put my other one up for sale? Would that be okay? Does my debt to income allow for me to be able to do that? And so that would be a much better way to go. So make sure that you navigate those waters on the front side before you submit that offer. Okay? The next thing is going to be your inspection period. All right, so the third thing, negotiation that we have here, inspection period. So we're going in, you've got an inspector to come through the property, and there's really two different types of properties that we need to talk about. Number one, new construction. We get an inspection back. What we really want is everything under the sun. We want it all done. If it's new construction, it better be all perfect before we close it. But number two is going to be a resale home. If we're buying a resale home, we need to expect that there's going to be some small things here and there. If we're buying a resale home, what we really want to talk about is going to be safety, number one, and structure, number two. Okay? Safety and structure isn't the whole house needs a paint job. I mean, maybe some situations, but you probably knew that walking into it anyway. So what we're really talking about is the house going to catch fire or is it going to fall in? Are there serious issues that are going to cause harm to my family moving into this home that we didn't know about walking into it? Because if it's something that I knew about walking into this home, I probably should have negotiated that on the front side with my offer. Okay? So just understand that. And the other part about it is your inspection period is your option period. We call it an option period because it's your time to opt in or out of this purchase. And so as a buyer, you can basically retract your offer and basically at that point terminate, and you have nothing against you. Now the money that you may have lost at that point will be your inspection money if you hired an inspector to do it. But aside from that, you haven't lost anything. You get your earnest money back. At that same note, the seller may want to keep getting offers until you're 100% committed to that purchase. So just keep that in mind. It goes both ways. And so if I was a buyer in that situation, I'm going to make sure that I understand the basic structure of the home when I'm submitting my offer in the first place. And I'm really only looking on a resale home for safety and structure items at that point. I want to make sure the roof is okay, the HVAC system's working fine, the water heaters are working as it should be, nothing electrical that's going to cause a fire. Those kinds of things are what we're talking about. All right? And so part of those big things, if you can imagine, if you drown the seller in repair requests And so let's say we've got those big 4 items on there, and then we've got these nitpicky stuff, and we want to throw it all and just ask for a bunch of stuff. And I've asked the seller now for 35 items to be fixed. Guess what? All of my important items just got drowned out by a bunch of small ones. Now I have no idea what's important to you. Okay? And so it's important that you understand that your message be clear on the way back, because a lot of this is on paper. Focus on safety and structure during that negotiation. Okay? Moving on. Okay? The next negotiation is the appraisal. When the appraisal comes in, it's either at value, above value, or below value. If you're the buyer, you're going to know which one it comes in at. Now, that's your time to also renegotiate. So let's say it came in low. You should have a protection in there to renegotiate and go, hey, listen, the bank is only willing to pay this amount of money. You know, can we drop the price to that amount because I don't have the money to pay the difference? That might be your reason for doing it. Okay. Number 2, you could pay the difference. You really could if it comes in under. And then number 3 becomes, what if it's over? Well, you could always go back to the seller and go, hey, listen, I work something out with the bank, and I'd like to be able to tie in some more of my closing costs into the loan above what we've already talked about. It won't come out of your pocket. Is that okay? And then work in some more seller contributions into that where it doesn't affect the seller. That would be okay. And so that's your next to last time to really renegotiate. And so the important part to really know about all of what we talked about here is the decision is up to you, okay, the buyer. Your agent's job is to advise you along the way and let you know what they would recommend. But the decision is always up to you, okay? So make sure you're comfortable with whatever decision you're making, because no one else is making it for you, and don't let an agent make it for you. Make sure that you're seeing eye to eye and you understand the situation together. Thank you guys for joining us today. I appreciate it very much. And for any information or any help buying or selling, please reach out. Our number is 770-314-1285, or check out our website at www.georgiaperimeterhomes.com. Bye.